Hello everyone, my name is Katy. Thank you very much for coming along to this virtual event with SQA. Now, the entire point of this session is to answer any questions that you might have about National 5s, higher, advanced hires and the way those courses have been awarded this year, questions about appeals, what's happening over summer. We're going to do our best to cover all bases. So I need your help. See that little Q&A function on the screen there? If you have any questions throughout the session, just pop them in and we will put your questions to our panel of experts. Now, I'm going to let the lovely Margot and Robert introduce themselves, if you don't mind, guys. Margot, I'm going to come to you first. Do you mind letting everybody know what you do and what kind of questions they can put to you?
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Margot McCarroll. I work at SQA. I'm one of the heads of service and the operations directorate. And the operations directorate, what we do is to support the delivery of qualifications in our schools, colleges and training providers. And I'm quite happy to answer any of the questions that you may have, about how your results are being awarded this year. And I'm quite sure as well my colleague Robert, whom I'm going to pass over to now, he's the same. He'll be able to help us out along the way as well.
Hello everybody, nice to be here as well. My name's Robert Quinn and I'm one of the heads of service within the Qualifications Directorate within SQA. We look after the actual qualifications, so we devise the requirements for the qualifications, we write the assessments that you guys do during the year that ultimately leads to you getting hopefully a certificate at the end of the year. I've got a particular responsibility for English languages and business qualifications, but I work with colleagues across the organisation in relation to the other areas as well. I'm looking forward to obviously discussing some of the key issues with you today.
Thank you very much, both of you. I think that we are more than fully equipped to answer any questions anyone might have off the back of that. So I think we should just get stuck in. I mean, as I say, if you have any questions throughout the session, please do pop them in the Q&A box and we will gladly do our best to answer them. But we do have a list of questions that we have gathered along the way. So let's just get stuck in. The first one for you both is, how long does the appeal decision take and will my place at university be affected? Margot, it's like we're in the classroom, isn't it?
It's actually hands up. I can answer that one. How long will the process take? Well, the learner registration service, we opened that on the 25th of June. So it's been open for just over a week. And what that service does is lets us know that you're intending to appeal for either your National 5 or your higher or your advanced higher results. And if you want to access that service, you just have to go to the SQA website, and that's www.sqa.org/appeals. And if you do that, it'll come to the landing page, and there's lots of information on that landing page to help you submit that forum to let us know that you're wanting to appeal. Now, that service for you to appeal directly to SQA is going to stay open until the 12th of August. Now, after the 12th of August, if you've not registered, don't worry, because your school, your college or your training provider, they can submit an appeal for you on your behalf. So if you're looking for an appeal and you need that result to get into university, then the schools need to let us know about that up until the 24th of August. So we would call that a priority appeal. If it's not a priority appeal, they can still let us know up until the 27th of August. Now, once we have that, we know that the appeal is ongoing, we'll be able to give the result of that appeal by the 8th of September. Now, that's for a priority appeal, and letting you know by the 8th of September what the outcome of that appeal is, means that we'll have that in time for the UCAS deadline, and indeed, any college or training provider deadline as well. So that's the timeline for priority appeals.
So plenty of time then to put that appeal through yourself. Just a question, Margot, does the school or college automatically lodge that appeal for you, or is it a case of you going to them and asking for the appeal?
Yeah, what happens there, Katie, is that if you register for an appeal through the learner registration, and as I've said, that's open from the 25th of June through till the 12th of August, that lets us know, SQA know, that you're wanting to appeal, but also lets your school, college or training provider know that you're wanting to appeal as well. And once they see that, they will then put that appeal forward to us. So the school, college, training provider, they will submit that appeal on your behalf, on the learner's behalf. So so you can do it yourself. You can let us know, or if you prefer, your school, college, training provider, they can do it on your behalf as well.
Perfect.
Hope that answers your question, Katie.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does. It's a really comprehensive answer, and we've got a little bit of time as well, so nobody needs to panic that they've missed any deadlines, which is always brilliant, because that kind of panic when you think, oh my goodness, it's just around the corner. Got a month plus, so we're good. Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's crystal clear. I'm happy with that.
Good, fantastic. Well, you might have something to say about this one. Now, this came up in a couple of the podcasts that we did with you guys, and I think it seems to be something that people are quite worried about. So hopefully we can ease some worried minds today. My teacher for one of my subjects didn't like me. I'm sure it's not true for a start, but how do I know I was given the grade I deserved?
Okay. I mean, I think the first thing there is, if anyone is worried about something like that, the first thing they should always do is obviously speak to their school. Speak if they can't speak to their teacher or department direct, speak to the head of department or the faculty head or the deputy head teacher or the SQA person in the school, or even the head teacher. So you shouldn't be left stewing about something like that. You should obviously speak to them. I mean, obviously this year, because there's no examinations, the assessments are assessed internally. They're assessed by schools, and therefore obviously the teachers have got a much closer role. They're much more in control of the assessment process than they've ever been before, and that obviously has got lots of benefits. It's got lots of benefits around flexibility, being able to adapt the assessments to suit the needs of the class, being able to adapt the assessments to suit the needs of a learner who's maybe had to be shielding or something like that. So there's lots and lots of benefits. Obviously, one of the potential worries is that if you're if your teacher has got a particular view of you, that potentially that idea of what we call bias might seep into the system, and we avoid that usually by having national exams, if you like. But what I would say is that although it's been designed for teachers to be closer to the system, another really important part of the process this year is that we shouldn't have the situation where the grade for a learner or a student is dependent on just the view of one single teacher. There's lots and lots of quality assurance or kind of checks and balances built into the system to ensure that that's not the case. So typically in a department, there'll be a number of classes, and there'll be a head of department, and they'll get together and they'll review. They'll do some cross marking, so they might not even mark the assessments of you yourself, and there'll be a bit of sampling and discussion and agreeing the standard and taking it from there. And then schools will work together as well. Schools have set up networks and they'll work with each other, and local authorities, regional local authorities will also do some checks and balances as well. And even SQA, we went through a big process of actually sampling the work of schools as well, just to check that things were on standard. But I think the main thing for me is two things. One, make sure you speak to your school or college if you've got to worry about that. But secondly, absolutely no single result can be determined by a teacher. There are lots of checks and balances in place this year to deal with that issue that you've correctly described as potentially being a worry.
I'm sure that's very complicated. Just that cross-marking, no one person is responsible for that decision that's made about your course. course and your coursework and your exam result. So I'm sure that will help. Margot, anything to add there?
Actually, the only thing I would add there is that don't feel that you've got to go to the school or the college on your own. You take somebody else with you. If you feel you want a wee bit of support there, so you could take a parent, a carer, a trusted person to go along with you, because that can be quite a difficult conversation to have, with your school. So don't feel you're on your own. Do take some support there with you to help you have that conversation with whoever in the school you're speaking to.
Absolutely. I suppose that's just good advice in general with everything we're talking about today. Like, don't feel like you're on your own with it, reach out to support systems, reach out to SQA to get advice and help. I mean, it's a really brave thing to do, full stop, to reach out for any help when you have questions. So don't be afraid to ask them and take whatever moral support that you can find around you. Okay, let's move on to the next question then, guys. Why were different schools allowed to do different things to decide grades? Who's taking this?
I'm happy to start off with that one. again, that's Katy. That's one of the features of internal assessment. I mean, one of the reasons why we didn't have examinations this year was because the rigidity of having national examinations at the same day, at the same time. Trying to deal with that when we've been in a period of disruption and people have had periods of when they've been missing school or they've had to shield, etc. So the idea is to give schools a lot more flexibility about when they assess their candidates and indeed how they assess their candidates. But it's not a complete free-for-all. It's not like you just decide what you feel in your water and decide and set a little task associated with that. There's actually for every subject there's a set of evidence requirements that we published in I think for National 5 it was November, and for Higher and Advanced Higher it was January. And these evidence requirements state specifically what is needed, and there can be a variation in a theme. So in a subject like English, for example, we said we need to have some evidence of your reading skills, a kind of close reading skills. We need to have evidence of your ability to engage with literature and write an essay about a Scottish text and write another essay. And we need to have some evidence of your overall writing skills, either writing discursively or writing creatively. That's a framework that all schools have to follow. There can be some variation there. Obviously, teachers can decide, what text you're going to study or what, and they can devise questions that can suit those texts. So there are some differences. There are some differences, but there is a specific framework in relation to that. I think as you move away from national exams, you always have to give up some of that absolute precision and introduce some flexibility. And the argument is that this year the benefits of flexibility in terms of dealing with the individual needs of candidates outweigh what you might lose in terms of that absolute precision, everybody doing the exact same thing. And I think actually it's also worth noting that quite a lot of the education sector in Scotland has this type of internal assessment. Those of you that maybe go into college and do some HNCs or HNDs and things like that, they are all assessed internally with us within SQA giving a framework for people to do. So that already exists, and we already cope with that flexibility. It's quite difficult if everybody's been used to national exams for years and years and years to suddenly have this flexibility pitched in. But within that flexibility, there are definite things that you have to do in order for us to maintain standards.
So those kind of key pillars, exist across the board.
Yeah, what we call them assessment components, basically chunks of a course or areas or key parts of knowledge and skills. And we need to gather evidence against these chunks, and they will be the same for each subject. But the actual detail of that might change, but the standard has to be the same. So even though the essay might be different in English, or the text or the topic you ask them to deal with, the standard of the question still needs to be at National 5 or Higher or Advanced Higher.
Absolutely. Margot, I'm coming back on myself there, sorry. Margot, anything to add to that one?
No, I think Robert's covered that, but it's not just in colleges where there's internal assessment. Schools are used to doing internal assessment as well. So for example, the National 4 courses, they're internally assessed, National 3 as well. And there are other courses as well, National Progression Awards, that are or skills for work courses. All of these other courses as well are all internally assessed. So our teachers and our lecturers are really used to dealing with internal assessment. But as Robert said, sometimes if all you're used to is National 5 or higher or advanced higher, that's an external exam, and then have that changed, that it is a wee bit different. But our teachers and our lecturers, they're well used to it, and they know how to deal with internal assessment.
It's that kind of getting used to evolving with that change, isn't it? Because even there, I mean, when did I leave school? 2013, and I was going to say, oh well, I back in my day. It happens so quickly. I mean, really. So it is just that adaptability, and as you say, the teachers and lecturers are well equipped because they know what they're doing, and they're used to it. So brilliant. That was our last question there. So let's jump back in. My school told me my grades before I finished up for the summer. I am happy with them. Will SQA change any of my grades like what happened last year? Very just now, Robert, are you wanting to take this one on?
I think Margot's going to go with this one.
Perfect. Let's jump to this time. Perfect. Right, Margot, we'll start with you.
I didn't think whenever we're doing this QA that we'd be fighting over answers and over responses. No, I'm going to actually, we said here that we're hoping that today's session will allay fears, and this is one of them. The grades that have been submitted, the provisional results that have been submitted to SQA, they were all submitted on the 25th of June, and those provisional results that all the schools, colleges submitted, they were based on the teacher judgment of that assessment evidence that Robert spoke about there. And not only that, that evidence, that assessment evidence, has been quality assured as well. So it's been through quite a rigorous process before it's even got to SQA. And once they were submitted, as I say, that was only just over a week ago, they were all submitted. And what we in SQA have done since then, we've done what we would call reconciliation integrity checks. And that's just an admin check, just to make sure that what the schools have put in is what they meant to put in. And just to give a wee example of that, in some instances, a school might have said that they were going to withdraw a learner from a particular subject. And what we'll do there is we'll just go back to school and say, are you sure about that? You've said you want to do that, are you sure? And they'll come back and say, yeah, that's what we meant. So that's what I mean by integrity checks or reconciliation checks, just making sure the data they've given us is what they intended to give us. And those provisional results, they will then pull through, and they will be the results that people will see on their certificates. So they're not going to be SQA. We are not changing those grades or those provisional results that the schools and colleges have submitted to us. So it's a different approach this year to last year. So that's just to reassure everyone that the provisional result that the school college gave to them on, before the 25th of June will be the one that they'll see on their certificate.
Sure, that I know we mentioned it before, but I'm sure that will ease a lot of people's minds, because I think it's just the idea, isn't it, that you could be sitting on, I don't know, a really good set of marks, and all of a sudden, it's not what you get at the end. That's not the case, which is very comforting to hear, I'm sure. Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. The only thing I would add, just as an example, it's a bit like I'm an old runner, an old athlete. So taking the athletics analogy, we don't try and match results to any pass rates this year. What we've got is we've set a bar, and everybody that clears the bar gets the reward, if you like. So whether that's everybody or nobody, you know, we've set the standard, and if people jump over the bar and meet the standard, they get their just reward.
I think that's a perfect, Robert. I really do. It's great. Moving on to another thing, people might be slightly, you know, concerns, maybe the wrong word, but just want to know what's in store for them, I suppose, next year. If they've done their National Fives this year, they're looking to do hires next year. Will there be exams?
Okay. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Before we get to exams, actually, the first thing we have to do is decide what's going to be the content that we're going to examine students on. Last year, right at the start of the pandemic, if you like, we decided that because we thought there would be significant disruption, we decided what we needed to do was consult with lots of different people about how we adjust the courses, if you like, slightly reduce the requirements of the courses to meet the requirements of, or to acknowledge that this has been a real year of disruption, but to still maintain what we would say would be national standards, if you like. So across all our subjects, we kind of reduced some of the content, some of the assessments that we require students to do. We temporarily removed. So in a subject like music, for example, we reduced the amount of time that you would have to play your instruments by. We allowed you to play your instruments, your pieces one at a time. We took away the requirement to do what's called a composition. And actually, finally, we also said that instead of having to do 2 instruments, you could still do 2 instruments, but you could decide just to play all your pieces on 1 instrument. Now that's quite a lot. That's probably an example of where we made quite a lot of modifications. But remember last year with the issues around playing brass and singing and stuff like, you know, and all the restrictions around that. So we had to really take cognizance of that. So we did that across the piece. Now, coming into this coming year, the situation is: should we just simply go back to the original arrangements, so, you know, or should we do something in between? So we've been looking at, we've been working with the subject advisors and the subject teams, and we've been listening to feedback from learners, from teachers, and we've decided that we need to do some sort of modifications for this coming year. It wouldn't be fair for us just to simply go back to the requirements which we had previously. I think because we've been so flexible with assessment this year, we've allowed young people to do their assessments right up to literally the end of June. So normally those people who remember, sometimes you switched over and you know, you did a bit of study leave, sat your exams, and then for June you switched over to your, you know, for your National 5 to your higher classes, and you got a few weeks of your higher classes. Sometimes you forgot all about it when you came back after the holidays, but at least you had a couple of weeks of doing that. You've not got that this year, and also, you know, we know that COVID is still out there and there's still the potential for some disruption. We've decided, I think, that we're going to continue with the modifications. We've rolled back in them a little bit. So for music, that example I gave for music, we're still going to have a reduced amount of time for your pieces, but we're now going to insist that you have 2 instruments, not just 1. So we've taken some of the modifications out and we've left some of them in. Other areas that we've changed, in some areas we've put some coursework back in, because we took some, you know, in subjects like business and the social sciences, things like an assignment that you do over time, we've put them back in because we feel candidates actually benefit from doing these things. And indeed, if there was, you know, some sort of disruption, then the ability to be able to do a wee bit of research on your own and write up a piece and use that to count as well as any exam-based assessment is quite good. So the first thing we did is we looked at the modifications. We decided we needed these modifications, and then to get to your question, which was about the are we going to have exams? Well, I suppose what we need to think about now is, okay, we've got these reduced course content for next year. How are we going to assess them? Now, our preference within SQA is that we do bring back the examinations, and the examinations are not just formal exams, but also other SQA assessment. Like in music, we send people around schools to assess young people playing, etc. It's called visiting assessors. So our preference is to put that SQA external assessment back in, because the original courses were designed to suit that type of assessment, that kind of endpoint assessment. And also for teachers, it's teachers understand and they know. And also, you know, there's been some criticism of a lot of assessment this year, you know, which we might get to later on today. But you know, so obviously to deal with that. So and also I think to give us that extra bit of assurance around standards, etc. So we think yes, modified courses next year. Tie them up with examinations, but it's ultimately not our decision. It's ultimately the Scottish Government's decision and the Cabinet Secretary's decision. And I think at the moment she's going to spend the summer just reflecting on that and taking some feedback. We do have, you know, an approach like this year, which we could use again next year. We would have to evaluate it and we'd have to try and make it better. So our preference is reduced requirements for courses allied to the return of SQA assessment, including examinations, but have an alternative approach in the background in case things go wrong. Cheers.
The courses have adapted has been quite extraordinary. I mean, the music example, certainly that's something that I hadn't even considered, the fact that certain instruments might be out of the question and kind of adapting in that sense. And I do think that you definitely touched on it, Robert, there about just ensuring, actually, you know, you more than touched on it, but that fairness and coming out of things, the kind of looking to the way things are weighted, you know, even when I was at, you know, school, I remember my mum saying that, what the heck's this int2 thing? I had O grades and they were better and all this rubbish. So it happens all the time, you know, it's just, you know, it's always going to be a thing. But there's a question I've got for you specifically. I'm worried my qualifications will not be seen as equal to others to other years because of COVID and lockdown. And this is kind of on that kind of same vein of maintaining standards that we were talking about before. But kind of what do you say to that when people maybe are questioning, you know, I mean, goodness me, you've got through so much more than most people would have got through in a typical year. That surely carries a lot of weight anyway. But, you know, speaking to the exams themselves and the coursework itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and you know, I can understand why people might be worried about that. You know, I'm this year, it was a different year, and therefore my qualifications are somehow different. But I think to counter that, I would say is that we have been quite rigorous in terms of what we've asked for this year, and what I said earlier about the evidence requirements for each subject. Yes, we've made some reductions, but we still require the same standard of work. So, you know, someone writing an English essay, the standard of work has to be at advanced higher level, or higher level, or National 5 level. Yeah, there might be some reductions in the volume of what people do, but the standard of what they have to do and all the links and connections they have to make across different parts of courses in order for us to give people a grade A versus a grade B versus a grade C, that all still has to be in place. So we've been very careful to talk to all the key players within the education system. So the universities, the colleges, the employers organisations, they've been part of this conversation. They've been part of the groups that have designed the approach this year, and they've lived and breathed it. So they've been fully supportive of the qualifications, and my goodness, what you said earlier about resilience and kids being, you know, learners being, you know, that in itself actually should be a badge of honour. So someone that's actually managed to come through all of that and actually get a good set of results this year, I think should be almost like an extra special badge of honour. So I think I wouldn't worry about that. I think we'll, you know, that people will be properly rewarded for their efforts, and that should be recognised by everybody who's involved in education and employment, and indeed Scotland as a whole.
I hope with you. I just think the kind of tenacity of the workers and the things that they've kind of got through this year, full stop. I mean, you know, even just not having a prom, now that's upsetting enough. So really, you know, I think that will help a lot of people to kind of see that comparison game is not worth playing. You know, the assessments are set at a level because they are that level, and if you've got a qualification, you should just be so proud of yourself, basically, bottom line. So that's really helpful. Now, as we've been talking there, Margot, a question's come in that I'd like to put to you, if that's all right. I don't know why I said that. I feel like you're in a hot seat now. I'm like, no, shining a light in your eyes. I was told that I would get extra time in my assessments, but for one of my subjects, I didn't get it. Can I appeal this?
Katie, yeah, that's the answer to that question is yes, as long as you had an agreed assessment arrangement with your centre. One of the appeals, one of the grounds for appeals is discrimination, and that includes assessment arrangements where that's been agreed previously, say with the school, the college, and then for whatever reason it didn't happen. So my advice actually would be for that young person to, as soon as the school's open again, or the college is open again, go and have a chat with the school, find out what evidence was used, whenever they were determining the provisional result, and find out whether or not that particular assessment that they didn't have the time for was that one of the ones that they definitely had agreed, because it has to be, they have to have evidence that it was agreed previously. And if that is the case, then yep, it sounds as though that young person probably would have grounds for appeal. And all they need to do then, as I've said, is they can go on to the learner forum, if they want to do that, or they can get their school or college to appeal for them. If you are appealing under that particular ground on discrimination or assessment arrangements, we do ask that you provide a really short kind of a written explanation as to what was what are you appealing for, what were the reasons for it. You don't need to go into any detail, just a kind of a short written response, just to give us that wee bit more information about it. And then what will happen then is that we will then be able to have a chat with the school, college, find out what happened, and agree some way forward for that particular one. So yep, so that sounds as though that's possibly a ground for appeal. Yep.
Sure, and of course the main kind of takeaway from that is that it would have had to have been discussed and disclosed to the college and kind of signed off on essentially before the exam.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be one that was agreed previously. And the school or the college, they'll have records of that because they must, that's one of the requirements. So they'll have records, and they'll be able to share that with us to show that, that for whatever reason, and these things happen, and we'll be able to then work with that school or college and see if we can, get that rectified.
Absolutely. Yep. Just to touch on the appeals process and how it works again, Margot, I know we did kind of chat about it before, but and you mentioned kind of moral support and kind of maybe getting someone to kind of help you along with the process. Can you get someone to complete the form on your behalf?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really recognise that this is the first year that any young person has been able to appeal directly to SQA. And that'd be quite a daunting thing, to do. I can imagine that. So so what you can do there with the registration forum, there is a section where it says, are you the learner, or are you the learner representative? And you then just give the details of who that learner representative is, and they can fill in the form for you. And if it is discrimination, like that example we just spoke about there about assessment arrangements, then they're able to provide that written explanation on your behalf. And if you don't do that, if as a young person or as a learner, if you don't use the service yourself, as I said, open from the 25th of June through to the 12th of August. If you don't want to do that, but you would prefer that your school or your college do it on your behalf, then absolutely wait till they're open again. Go and have a chat with them and say to them, would you do this for me, please? And I'm quite sure they'll be happy to support you, because it's as a young person, it's your right to appeal, and you can do it yourself, or you can do that. You can get somebody to give you a wee bit of moral support in doing it.
As you say, it's a big thing to kind of hang on a second. No, I think that you need to take another look at that and advocate for yourself in that way. So, any help you can get to kind of, make you feel better about it.
What I would say as well, Katie, is it's always good advice, to go and speak to your college or your school, before you even if you've put an intent, a form in, say you're intending to appeal. I mean, our advice would be speak to your school or college when they open again, and they'll be able to give you they'll be able to give you their professional advice, and they'll be able to go through all the evidence that they used, all the quality assurance that they did to come to the result, and they will then you'll have so much more information then, and you would then be able to decide if you want to go ahead with that appeal based on evident, you just kind of feeling better informed about it as to whether or not they felt that was a good way, or that was the right way to go forward. So definitely, you talk about it, and obviously before you talk to your school or college about it, speak to others about it as well. Do use that network to have that chat about it. Speak to your college, and then make the decision as to whether or not you want to appeal or not.
That's really good advice as well. I mean, I think it's just that knowing that there's that accessibility, that you are able to just say, hey, I've got a question here, and go to the people, go to college, go to school, and just ask them if you can discuss it. And as you say, Margot, I'm sure they'll be more than willing to have that conversation with any learner that does come forward. Just a reminder again that if anyone has any questions, to pop them in the Q&A function on the meeting here. I do have some more for you guys. I'm sorry, I'm still shining that light in your eyes. The hot seat is still well and truly in full swing. I'm going into 5th year to do my hires. Will SQA make allowances for the work that I missed in my National 5s because of lockdown?
Yeah, Katie, that I suppose when you asked me about the exam questions earlier, I suppose that was what I was saying at first, that absolutely yes, we will make allowances for that, and we've actually just published on the subject pages on the website. Each subject's got a subject page. If people go into the SQA website and then go into NQ subjects, and then go into each page, or you could just Google Higher English or National 5 Physics or something like that. There's different ways to access it, as we know. But if you you can actually have a look. We put a kind of paragraph in for every subject saying what the plan is for next year. So if it gets to the, for sciences, for example, we're not going to do as much of the practical assessment, because we realise that's still challenging in the context of COVID, or for some other areas like maybe like history, for example, we're going to restrict a little bit the number of topics that you're going to be assessed on. So all of that information's there. So I would encourage folk just to go in and have a look at that, and that'll give you a bit of reassurance. We've not reduced things too much, but because that other question you asked me earlier about credibility and the importance of the qualifications that this year and next year, we've got to be mindful of that as well. It's really important that they're still seen as valuable qualifications. So there's been there is some reduction this year, not as much as previously. But if you go into the website, you'll see all the requirements for each subject.
Do you know as well? A good point to mention, Robert, as well, that the SQA website is a really comprehensive way to gather information about kind of the future, if you like, and kind of what the immediate future and what things are going to look like next year. And there's a lot of information on there, and really useful booklets and things that young learners should go and consult if they have any questions, beyond this session, and they maybe just want to just put their mind at ease and just check things out. There's lots on there. But yeah, you're right. We did kind of touch on that before, but I think it's, you can't overstate the fact that, these courses are adapting in the same way that we've all had to, I suppose, the last kind of year plus. I don't even know how long it's been anymore. I'm fried with it, but yeah, so really, really useful information there. Thank you. Well, I suppose we're back on appeals again with the next question that I've got for you. And Margot, I know that you know these dates, so I'm just going to ask you again, because it's impressive actually at this point, because my memory's gone, so let me know. I have registered for an appeal for Higher English. When will I find out the results? I think I know what you're going to say.
Katie, that depends whether or not you're appealing for, maybe called a priority appeal. So if it's a priority, and that means that you need it in order to move on to university or college, and you'll get the result of that by the 8th of September. And that is within the timeline that UCAS, they're the ones that kind of look after university entrance, etc., or indeed colleges. It's in time for that. So people with a priority appeal will find out round about that time. There's obviously not everybody's going to be a priority appeal, and indeed there's not, in comparison to others, we're probably not expecting as many priority. For everybody else, which that we call non-priority, that doesn't mean you're not a priority. It just means that it's not needed for immediate entry into a college or a university course. So for the non-priority appeals, they'll be the results of them. You'll get the outcome of them will be kind of in the autumn. We don't have, and it's not that I've forgotten the date, but there isn't a kind of an actual date there. But just to let you know, it will be in the autumn term, when your schools will be informed, what the outcome of that appeal is, and then they'll be able to let you know what the outcome is. And then following that, both with a priority appeal and the non-priority appeals, you will get if the grade is changed, then you'll get a new certificate to reflect that change.
Fantastic. And the process for appeals is open until the August 12th. For
learners. The learner registration is open till the 12th of August, and if any learner hasn't appealed by that time, their school or their college can appeal up till the 24th of August for a priority appeal and 27th of August for the non-priority. Yep. But that's it, 27th of August, everything, we need to have that in by then.
Okay, so that's definitely a date for everybody's diary then. Make sure that it's in well in time. And just priority appeal, so that would be if you had like a conditional placement to uni then. Okay.
Yeah, that's if you're needing it. Yeah, for a conditional, and it's not just for university. Some college courses as well, are looking for particular grades to get onto their courses, and like for modern apprentices as well. There's a lot of people now. They don't automatically go straight into university. A lot of people now go down the modern apprentice route, and a lot of employers there who are offering those. Some of them have set conditions as well, and graduate apprenticeships as well. That's the other one that's that a lot of people are now starting to get into, where they can do a bit of both, kind of a work and at university as well. So so it's not just the college, it's not just the university courses, colleges and employment as well.
Sure, absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much, Margot, for that one. Next question for you both is, after the year we've had, how is it fair that if I appeal, I can be downgraded?
Okay, I can take that one if that's okay. So it's a good question, but I suppose to start that one off, I would say that I'm hopeful from what we've observed during the year and all the checks and balances that have been put in place. All the examples we've seen of centres double checking results and sharing their marking with SQA, and SQA doing a check and feeding a report back to the centres, and all the work we've done on we do a thing called understanding standards with teachers, where we give them some examples of candidate work, and they do some exercises about whether that's an A candidate, a B candidate, a C candidate. So it's been a big effort this year to try and get things right, and I'm confident that on the basis of that in most cases centres will get their results right. However, we need a safety net, because you need to have that safety net to ensure, just in case anything slips through that net, there's a mechanism to deal with that. So that's the origins of the appeals process per se, that you need that just in case there's been some sort of error that's gone undetected, which sometimes be an omission by the teacher. It's not necessarily an error that's been deliberate, etc. So yeah, if something doesn't look right to the learner and they want to query it, then we need to have an appeals process. But I think in the main, I would expect most centres to get the results right. But during the appeals process, what we'll be doing is we'll be measuring the evidence of the learner against the standards that we've set and that we require schools and colleges to set assessments against. And that's called evidence-based. Basically, we're measuring their performance against the evidence base. I think in most cases we probably won't see a need to change a grade. I don't think, because I think in the main centres we'll get it right. If there is an injustice, but if we feel that this is clearly not, this is clearly not a B candidate, this is clearly an A candidate. When we're reviewing the work and we're looking holistically across all the different pieces of evidence, this is clearly somebody performing at A. The school have been too harsh. If that's the case, then we will absolutely make that correction. But equally, if we're presented with evidence and that evidence actually suggests that the candidate is not even at a B, what they're actually at, it's actually performing at a lower level, then again, we would have to take cognizance of that. And, there is still the potential that we might have to give somebody a lower grade than their original grade. Don't expect that to be a common occurrence. We've had this for years for our marking review process. We've had the possibility of that, and it's not something we've been very, very careful. We've absolutely got to be absolutely sure, before we would upgrade or downgrade a candidate. We've got to be absolutely sure. But if we did get the situation where the evidence suggested a poor performance, then we wouldn't be doing our job as an awarding body if we gave somebody a certificate for a grade B when really their evidence only suggested a grade C. I don't think that will happen very often, but it is something that is always a possibility within an appeals-based system. If we didn't do that, then potentially you start to question the value of our certificates and the stuff I was saying earlier about the integrity of the certificates. So I know it's a difficult message, and I know some people will think that's an unpopular message, but we have to call it as we see it. But again, just to reassure people, we'll not be searching for reasons to downgrade candidates, or indeed reasons to upgrade candidates. We will be basically taking a look at this evidence using our expert reviewers, and we'll be saying, is this okay, or is this, first of all, we'll be saying, is there injustice? Do we need to upgrade this candidate? But there is a possibility of a downgrade, but it's something we'll take a lot of care about, but it's something we have to do because of the value of our certificate.
I completely understand. Really difficult one though for the individual. Absolutely. Making that call. I can't imagine, especially when I mean, it's just a question. Do you look into the entire year group, or would it just be in the individual? I just wondered as you were saying that there.
Yeah, I missed a wee bit of that, Katie, but I think you were asking us. If we pick up something like that, would we open it up for the other candidates? The answer there is we wouldn't. We've been given strong legal advice that would say that the appeals have to come forward and stand on an individual basis. So we wouldn't necessarily dig deeper unless there was some real major concerns. We wouldn't really do that. We would judge everything on an individual basis. What I would say to learners is think very carefully about the appeals process. Be confident that in the main teachers are trying to get this right, and they're trying. If there's any doubt, they will give that doubt to the candidates. I've been a teacher myself, as is Margot, so we know if there is any doubt to be given within the strict framework that the guys like us put on them, then they will give that benefit of the doubt. But so think very carefully about that. Don't just. It's not a speculative thing that you should just fire things in. If you really think that it's important, then do it.
Sure, Margot.
I'm just going to echo what Robert said there, and both Robert and I have both been at the chalk face, so to speak. So yes, we've both done our teaching stint, but it goes back as well to what I said to one of the earlier, when we were talking, Katie, and that was about have discussions with your school or your college before you make this big decision. As I say, this year it's the first year that learners have had the right to appeal directly with us. And I would just so advise that any learner has that conversation with their teacher or their lecturer before they make that big decision, because they will be able to really help them with, here's the evidence we used, here's the quality assurance that we did, here's what we did before they actually make that decision to appeal. And every teacher and lecturer will remind learners that grades might stay the same, or they may go up, or on a rare occasion they may go down. But as Robert says, we're not going out there looking to upgrade or downgrade, or indeed to stay the same. All we're doing there is we're just looking at the evidence in a holistic way. But it goes back to that advice I want to give: speak to your teachers, your learners, before you make that big decision, or or other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, you don't ever really get that opportunity to ask your teachers how that decision was made, and to understand and to see that laid out in front of you. It's quite a unique experience for people to really understand kind of what the next steps are, and I suppose it'd be quite an enriching experience, something I would quite like to have done and sat with my teacher and really gone through how the decision was made as well. It could be quite a positive experience really once you have that conversation. So yeah, thank you very much to both of you for that one. Another question for you, again quite an emotive one. How can it be fair that I had to do over 20 assessments squeezed into 2 weeks after not being in school for months? Now you can see someone's kind of quite upset writing that one, or quite distressed. So, it is a really tricky one, and what the kids have had to do this year is quite extraordinary. So I wonder whether either of you would be up for answering that one.
Yeah, I'll have a go, Katie. You always give us the easy questions, but it's a really good question. And we've seen that from a number of sources. So I suppose the thing there is that with any internal assessment, or with any qualifications that are assessed by the teacher, it needs to be based on evidence of assessment. So you still need to undertake appropriate assessments. And if we hadn't had the second lockdown, then I think you could argue that the assessments would have been spread more evenly over the year. But in order for us to give a certificate to somebody, we still need to have evidence to base that certificate on. So it's almost by circumstance, because of the second lockdown, if you like, it meant that there was less time for assessment, and it meant that a lot of schools had to squeeze that assessment into a shorter period of time. But even if we hadn't had the second lockdown, the assessments themselves would have probably had to have been towards the end of the year, particularly for some subjects. In a subject like English, for example, you can probably spread things more evenly through the year. You can do a reading assessment, maybe at Christmas time, or you could do one of your Scottish text essay, and then your more general critical essay, and then you could maybe do your writing folio during the year. But something like mathematics or biology or physics, for example, quite a lot of the assessment is about making links and connections across different parts of the course. So if you just did a little end of topic test for maths in maybe September, another end of topic test in December, another end of topic test in February, you might have done quite well around all of that, but you've not really shown us necessarily that you can put it all together. And the real test, particularly for giving people A's and B's, rather than just C's, is the ability to make links and connections. We call that synoptic assessment. Basically, that's the fancy name for it, but essentially it's making those connections. And our courses are not really designed for continuous assessment, because they've not got that extra challenge, at the end of topic stage. So as a result of that, even if we hadn't had the second lockdown, we'd have still had to have done, particularly subjects like sciences and maths and subjects like that, you'd have still had to have done quite a lot of assessment towards the end of the year. But in some of the areas, maybe in the languages, for example, in music, for example, or drama, we might have been able to spread things more evenly. And I think the final thing is about the kind of 20 assessment scenario. We also allowed centres the ability to split the assessments. So if you do maths, for example, split it into the calculator and the non-calculator, or business management, split it into section 1 and section 2. We allowed people to suit the timetables of classes, and that's resulted in students maybe doing lots and lots of assessments and getting that feeling of, you know, assessment burnout. But we've also had quite a lot of positive feedback from particularly from quite studious learners to say that they quite liked, you know, the idea that you could split things down into manageable chunks, and you could, you know, jump over that, using the running analogy, rather than a high jump, you could jump over that hurdle and then jump over another hurdle and then another hurdle. So it is a bit unfortunate that the second lockdown has meant there's been a lot more assessment, but really there was no other way, because you have to base your results on evidence. You can't just give it on what the teacher thinks. It has to be on evidence for the certificate of value. So there was really no choice. And even without that second lockdown, there still would have been quite a lot of assessment towards the end of the year, but maybe not as much. But so I really want to thank all the learners for hanging in there, you know, and showing that resilience that you talked about earlier. And I really do feel confident that they'll get their just reward.
Absolutely. It is fascinating as well, like hearing you speak about all the different kind of disciplines for each course. And it's true with sciences, with maths, it is, you know, you need to show that kind of, I don't know, the kind of whole picture. Yeah. Whereas you're right, I did English at university, and it was very much that the way you said, like in kind of chunks like that, it could have been done differently. So coming up with something that fits, you know, all the pupils and all the courses and things, you know, it was a humongous task. And you know, you're right, it might work for some learners and a struggle for different ones. It's you know, it was a lot. So I think this a brilliant answer that you gave there, Robert. Margot, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think what Robert's saying is absolutely right. I mean, I did teach biology, all the ologies at the end. Yes, I was that was my discipline, or biotechnology as it was, and yes, and that, you know, it is you know, kind of a more of a integrated, you know, and that's the whole thing. It's been able to link one idea with another and see that how they all join up, and that's how we know that you've actually really understood the, you know, the subject area. So yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate, and nobody knew there was going to be a lockdown for 3 months, but the way in which, you know, young people have shown resilience and been able to set those assessments, I just think is really, really good. And I sincerely hope that you know, that they're getting the results that they, you know, that they truly deserve. Yep.
Sure, absolutely. No, it's been a crazy time for everybody, and yeah, I think the resilience is the key thing, but also just, you know, knowing that there is support beyond kind of these dates and these frameworks that we've spoken about today. I mean, I don't know if either of you want to touch on the kind of support that goes into the holidays, you know, the information that's online. You know, SQA are doing so much to ensure that these results are fair and they are checked, and that, you know, everyone's getting their best shot going forward. So Rob, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, just to say that and it's a bit like what Margot said as well, and indeed yourself, Katie, and that's always ask for help, always ask for support. So key message from us is you know, SQA have got their candidate advice line. Other bodies so make sure if you've got any worries or concerns, please give us a call, and they'll take you through any of that, and they'll point you in the right direction in terms of other people to speak to, or give you the appropriate advice that you're looking for. Every year, an organisation called Skills Development Scotland that really is the voice of the employers. You know, they have a helpline as well, to help people, you know, if they're worried about, they don't think their grades are good enough to get into this job or that job, or what are my options. And you know, we see all the stuff about no right path. You know, that and I strongly believe in that, the no right path scenario. Both myself and Margot also taught in the college sector, which actually is part, and as part of that, we help people, you know, change paths, or indeed, you know, change track, or what you get in. You're not defined really in what you get in 4th, 5th and 6th year. You know, there's lots of opportunities every day. You'll know that, Katie. There's lots of opportunities that open for people at different, and we shouldn't be overly focused on that. And also, yeah, it's a serious business qualifications, but even these graded qualifications like your Hires and your National Fives, etc., they're not the only show in town. You know, there's other things out there as well. You know, there's you know, for example, my son and I've used music as an example before. My son works in the kind of music industry, and so he did his music qualifications in 5th year and 4th year and 5th year. But in his 6th year, he was credited in music production. So he did a progression award at the local college, and a national progression award in sound production, a school-college partnership. And to me, that's the type of thing that we need to celebrate as much as. It's a serious business, these graded national qualifications, but there's lots and lots of opportunities out there beyond that, and actually to enhance what you've got. And I think we should, and there's lots of people who can give people advice about that. So there's always another path for people, and we should always have that in our minds, and try and move forward positively.
A fantastic example there, actually, that you gave of your son's course that he did. That's brilliant. And actually, if you don't ask the questions, you don't even know that stuff's out there. Really, I mean, for goodness sake, it took me so long to figure out how to get into radio because I just didn't ask the questions, didn't know where to look. So the more that you kind of do show that inquisitive streak and get out there and kind of find the thing that works for you, that's just such a powerful move and such a powerful thing to do, and your college lecturers, your teachers, they will have that advice for you. And as you say, Skills Development Scotland, various helplines and things, SQA website, it's all there. It's just a case of tapping into it, isn't it? Margot, anything that you would like to add?
Just there's always another path, always. And having worked in the college sector, I worked there for 16 years. I know that really well. And I think probably if we think of our own career paths as well, I mean, I can begin to tell you the number of jobs I've had and the number of different pathways I've taken. So, and that is, that's what it's all about. But as well as what other resources and things are out there, some people might be feeling a wee bit, they may be needing a wee bit help. They may be feeling a wee bit fragile, not sure what to do, etc. as well. And there's lots of resources as well for for health and well-being as well. So like the Children's Parliament and the Youth Parliament, their website, they has got lots of resources on that as well, to help with things like that, help with resilience. And Young Scot, that's another website that to get in there, there's loads of information on there as well. And it goes back to that, just look, see what there is, ask for help, speak to people as well. Yep.
Well, I've got a feeling that this session will have been a big help to a lot of people. So thank you very much to both of you for answering those. We didn't give you it easy today at all. There were some really tricky questions on there. So thank you very much for being so comprehensive with your answers and for just helping everybody to kind of get some clarity about some really big questions. So just a huge thanks to both of you and for all the work that you've done, for goodness sake, putting it all together. Oh my goodness, what a year.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much and good luck, everybody.
Yeah, thanks from me as well. And I sincerely hope you get the results that you're looking for. Yep.
Now remember that all the information that we discussed today will be available. There's lots of links below, and there's all sorts of information you can find on the SQA website. And of course you can watch this session back if you want to go back and check out any of the answers individually later on. Thank you very much everyone for watching.